What's up, you guys? This is Devin from Century Effects Studios, back with another video. Today we're going to be talking about flashing action or sports. And you might be saying to yourself, why would I want to flash somebody in action or in a sports movement or something like that? Well, you need to flash because let's take it from the bare reason why we want to use flash in photography. Well, flash is to, of course, illuminate a subject so you can see them, but flashes add so much more to image quality for your camera because we're using what we call digital sensors. These digital sensors are very discrete. They run off of binary code, which means you have a 0 or a 1 for a value in color and the way it sends information. So if you don't have any light information, in layman's terms, if you don't have any light information to send to that sensor through that lens, then you get a bad picture. So the more light and controlled light that you can send to that that camera source, which is a photon receiving device, the better the quality of the image. Now, if you can control it, that makes you even better of a photographer, or it makes you just a better photographer. But nevertheless, the more light you can give to that thing, the better your picture is going to look. Now, with that being said, you have sports photography. Now, sports photography is one of the most challenging, if not the most challenging, I'd say, genre in photography, because it's next to wildlife, where you're trying to capture something that you don't even know what it's really about to do. Now, with some sports, you can kind of get your experience up and then anticipate what they're about to do. But at the end of the day, if you're taking pictures of humans, you never know what they're gonna do. They could have all the best intentions in the world, and something bad might happen, and your duty is to capture what happens at said event, whether it's good or bad. In most cases, sometimes it's just good because you're on one team, but I digress. There's been a whole bunch of weird pictures that I've caught in sports over the years. Now, when you flash sports, it gives you this NDS look, a lot like studio portraiture, where it's really polished. It's really like nothing anybody's seen before. When that light etches the subject, if you have somebody dunking, if you have somebody doing something on a basketball field, sports field, anything like that, if you can flash them and illuminate them in a way, it will give you an artificial sense sometimes, because you don't get the option of where to put the flash. But if you get the option to put the flash where you want to put it, it makes for a great image. Now, in this video, what we're going to be doing is testing out constant light and strobe light. Now, I say flashing a subject, but I'm essentially saying add artificial light that wasn't there in the first place. We have the constant light. Now, I'm using a Yongnuo 600 LED constant light. Now, you guys are saying, why are you using Yongnuo? You hate them. I don't hate them. They just they really patronize me what they can give based off of what I get when it comes to the mail. But nevertheless, I have this this constant light. You have to think about the constant light. I'm using the Canon 7D Mark I, and the reason I'm using 7D is because it's faster than the 80D. Now, it's designed for sports, so to get the most out of this practice, because I'm practicing, I'm not actually doing this for any kind of special reason. If I get a good shot, I'll send it to Jenny, but Jenny is kind of like a partner in this show, so I had to go and show her some love and some props by practicing, and if I get a good shot, I'll send it to her. But that's the essential, long story short, about where these images are going and why am I doing what I'm doing. Because a lot of people are going to ask me in the comments, why are you doing this? This doesn't look this way. Oh, I'm just practicing, man. I'm trying to see what I'm going to get, because if I can see what I'm going to get, review my images, go back in the field, I can do something totally more experienced and pointed towards a good image when it's actually for a good reason. Now, with the constant light, thanks for listening to that one. But for the constant light, we have this light that always stays illuminated. Now, if you have a light that always stays illuminated, you have to be able to place that light, if it's only one, and you have to place it in the right location, where if you're in a sports location, you don't have a lot of chances to place a constant light in the right place at the right time. You gotta really understand the situation that you're in, know that nobody's gonna bump into it or knock it or all this stuff. So safety is one thing. Then you have battery power. Battery power is another thing. Battery power LEDs are essentially a new modern invention. Usually people used to use powered things, like even right now with this this big softbox that I'm using, and all the lights inside, they have cords coming out of them because I want the light to be consistent. I don't want my exposure to change just because the light's running out of battery power. So battery power is one thing. And then also with something being so portable, we go to the next thing, which would be output. I found myself a lot of times not arguing with this output because I plugged it in, but this can be a wireless system, so the power output may not be as strong. And then with it coming from one direction with such a heavy light source, you might have to find some kind of way to blend it or bounce it or something like that to get the light the way you want to, because you want to feel all of the subject. You don't just want to feel one side. And then, can the light source be in front of the subject to get even illumination? Can you put a modifier on it, and then that modifier will then cut down some light power? So those are some of the things you want to worry about. And then you also have the response time. You get a lot better of a response time from the LED because it's not attached to your camera. You don't have to sync. There's no syncing process. There's no sending or receiving of information. What your camera sees is what your camera gets the entire time. It's kind of like a DSLR and its OVF. When you're looking at it, that's exactly what you're getting in real life. Now, what you're exposing is a separate thing. But nevertheless, what you see is essentially what you get with the constant light. And that allows your camera to work faster. Now, with it only being one light, that casts heavy shadows on the opposite side of the subject. And I couldn't really move it the way I wanted to because we weren't in the studio that I thought we were going to be in because they changed studios. But nevertheless, there was another issue, which was overheating. Now, I was lucky enough to have a LED light with a fan. This fan could cool it down, but if you don't have an LED light with a fan, then it's gonna overheat, and if that falls, it could set the whole if it falls on the carpet, it could set the whole place ablaze because those things get really, really hot. And then you got to find a way to mount it, and if that mount doesn't have an angle or bracket on it, then you're not going to be able to bounce it and split the light in a way, or bounce the light in a way that you're going to be able to get even illumination, or at least decent illumination on multiple sides of the subject. And then you have to think about color balance. Is this going to be a nice color balanced light? Is it going to match the lighting? Are you going to custom white balance with the lighting inside so it doesn't look as bad? Or are you going to cut all the lights off inside? You're just going to use that one light. That's something to think about too. Last thing I was really thinking about was exposure settings. If it does die, if it does not have the light output, do you have to strain your camera to compensate for the amount of light you're going to be getting out of that light over time? Does it have the endurance to last the test of time? Because if you're shooting with shooting with any kind of camera that can shoot 8 frames a second, you're going to be there for a while doing certain things and repeating certain things. Is the light going to have that endurance to last as good as that DSLR will? Now let's get to the strobe. Now I was out there with the strobe. I was out there with this the Flashpoint Explorer 600. Everybody's using the 600 in their model name nowadays. But anyway, we were out there with the Flashpoint 600. This Flashpoint 600 does pretty much everything that you want it to do. But you have to think about it in the aspect of the flashing sports. If you're flashing sports, then there's people probably running around that are not prepared for a flash. And especially if you're in a contrasty environment. That's why a lot of theaters and all performers that perform on stage and all this other stuff, even if they're doing something really fast on stage like dancing, they don't want you to flash because they're not ready for it in such a dark environment. You can really mess somebody up. So you can tell by the video, I was like, wow, that really can get on somebody's nerves and throw somebody off really, really bad. But the color balance is not something that I had to worry about. Endurance, this thing was at full power almost the whole time because with it being in such a small environment, I didn't have to worry about anything. I don't have the ETTL version of this, but it might have done a good job exposing over a certain amount of time. But I just dial down the exposure to the exposure that if they get too close to me, I'm good enough that it won't overexpose, and if they get far away from me, then I'll be able to compensate for that as well. But you also have a light that's also on one side of the room or wherever the performers want to take you, or wherever they want it to be is where it's going to be. It's not necessarily where you, the artist, wants to be, the photographer. So you have to think about it in that regard as well. And then you have to also think about the overheating. You can overheat this flash. It didn't in this situation for almost 2 hours in that closed environment, not running at a high power. Then you also have to think about the response time of this flash. You're syncing a camera with a flash. That means the camera has to auto expose. It has to send that information through the lens TTL through to the daggone well, not to my flash. My flash is manually powered, but if you have a speed light, which you're probably going to be using, you have to send all that information, and it takes time. And you're trying to do multiple frames a second. You understand how much computing that camera has to do. So think about that. And then like I said, you have limited placing. That battery power went on for days though with the Flashpoint Explorer 600, and the power output, I had it for days. Now you can bounce this flash because you have it automatically on an articulating arm. You can bounce it and get even illumination throughout the room and get good image quality with a flash flashing sports. Now you can use high-speed sync, but high-speed sync for the higher shutter speeds, of course, not necessarily the environment, but the higher shutter speeds will bring down the ambient exposure, which is already not bright in a room. So you might want to think about that. Then you have to also think about high-speed sync over a long period of time will, wear down the batteries. High-speed sync over a long period of time will be at my detriment and not necessarily to my benefit if I don't have the right equipment. And then you also have to think about the sync speed if you're trying something experimental like I did and putting it in multi-strobographic mode. You might be saying, well, why would you use multi-strobographic mode for flashing sports? Isn't it for longer exposures? Isn't that for like putting like double exposures in one image? Well, yes, it is. In most cases it is, but I actually put mine at 1 hertz at 1 frame a second, and I'm actually able to allow my flashpoint to recycle faster and get ready for the next trigger. So I was able to get off like almost all 8 frames a second, and at 1 hertz, in multi-strobographic mode, and it was killing it. It was doing an awesome job recycling and not having a problem. So those are some of the things you want to think about when you're actually flashing sports. And are you being annoying to people? Are you going to have the equipment to hack it? Are you going to be able to actually make that whole environment your studio in some type of way, form, or fashion? And how much are they moving? How close are they getting to you? Are you exposing if they get close to you suddenly? And then how many frames a second are you dishing out? Can your flash keep up with that? All this other stuff. But I'm done with Seductive Studios, guys. Thanks for watching. Jenny, thanks you for watching, and I'll be able to put some clips from her actual video in this video. Thanks for watching.